No! Daniel shouted. The candle flames jumped and flickered, going out one by one. The shrine was almost dark. The wind howled like it was alive. The floor shook under his feet. In the middle of the circle stood Joyce. Her white dress was wet and red, sticking to her. Her eyes were not like a normal person's eyes. They were black and empty. She smiled slowly. "You cannot hurt someone who is already dead," she said softly. Daniel's hands shook so much, the knife fell from his hand with a loud clatter. He could not move. His heart beat fast. He tried to breathe, but it was hard. What do you mean?" he whispered. Joyce stepped forward slowly. "You wanted my blood for power, didn't you?" she said coldly. "You thought my death would make your gods happy?" Daniel looked around. The walls had strange marks. The floor was wet with something dark. The air smelled like fire and old things. I did everything right," he said, voice shaking. The priest said..." "The priest is dead," Joyce said calmly. "He died the day you married me. Did you wonder why?" Daniel's knees shook. He fell a little. Who are you?" he asked, tears in his eyes. Joyce smiled slowly, sad and quiet. "You married a dead woman, Daniel," she said. Thunder crashed outside. The candles lit themselves again. The flames were blue now. Shadows moved on the walls. They looked like hands reaching for him. Daniel screamed and ran to the door. It slammed shut before he could reach it. "You took my life 3 years ago," Joyce said softly. "Now I am here for yours." The shrine made a loud sound. The floor cracked. Cold wind blew. Whispers called Daniel's name. Daniel fell to his knees. "Please, Joyce, forgive me," he cried. She did not move. Her eyes glowed bright. The blue flames turned red. "Forgive you," she said softly. "You never forgave me when I begged for my life." The lights went out. Daniel's scream filled the night. Before all this, there was love. Or, at least, it seemed like love. Daniel was tall, smooth, and smelled like money. He had cars, houses, and charm, but his heart was dark. He wanted more power, more fame, more control. One night, a strange old man came to him. He wore a long red robe. His eyes looked like fire. "If you want true power," the man said, "marry a pure woman and give her as a sacrifice before the 7th night of your wedding." Daniel laughed, but the man's words stayed in his mind. "Her death will give you everything," the man said. "Your business, your fame, your name, all will grow." A month after, as Daniel drove home after a long business meeting, the rain came down as though it wanted to erase the city itself. Through the blur of his wipers, he saw a lone woman standing by the roadside, drenched, motionless, staring into his headlights. He slowed down and rolled down the window slightly. "Do you need help?" he asked. She leaned forward, her face pale but calm. "I was waiting for you," she said softly. Daniel hesitated, but something about her tone, not desperate, not frightened, just certain, drew him in. He unlocked the door and she stepped in, water dripping onto the leather seat. The silence between them was oddly comfortable. No introductions, no awkwardness, just the sound of rain tapping against the windshield like a quiet heartbeat. Within minutes, conversation flowed. She laughed at his dry sarcasm and he found himself smiling genuinely for the first time in months. She spoke about how she loved watching city lights blur through the rain, how storms made her feel alive. He told her about his dreams, his struggles, his sleepless nights building an empire that never felt enough. It felt easy, too easy, like two souls that had rehearsed this meeting long before it happened. It's strange, Daniel thought, how someone you meet in the rain can suddenly make the world feel warm. Her name was Joyce, and that single drive through the storm would be the first step towards his downfall. A connection so effortless, it blinded him to the storm that was truly coming. Daniel dropped her off at her apartment that night. But when she stepped out of his car, something in him felt incomplete, like he had just left behind a part of himself. She waved, thanking him softly, and disappeared into the rain. But her scent lingered, faint perfume mixed with storm air, and it haunted him all night. He tried to sleep, but couldn't. Her face kept replaying in his mind, that calm smile, those eyes that seemed to see through him. By the next evening, he couldn't resist. He called her. She laughed when he heard his voice, that kind of laugh that makes silence jealous. One dinner turned into two into weekends, and before long they were seeing each other almost every day. The connection was effortless, like destiny had been waiting for them to meet. As one of his friends joked, "Daniel, na love or hypnosis?" Daniel only smiled and said, "Maybe both." The days that followed felt like something out of a dream. Daniel and Joyce became inseparable, two halves moving in perfect rhythm. They explored the city together, long night drives, laughter echoing through empty streets. Sometimes they parked by the bridge, watching the city lights ripple across the river. She'd rest her head on his shoulder, whispering, "The world feels smaller when I'm with you." He'd smile and reply, "Then let's never make it big." At cafes, they'd share a single cup of coffee, pretending to argue about who drank more. She'd draw tiny hearts on tissue paper, he'd pretend to be annoyed, then secretly pocket them all. Weekends were slower, cooking breakfast together while music played softly in the background. He taught her to make pancakes, she taught him to slow down. For a man who once measured life by profit and projects, time with her felt like profit he couldn't count. They would dance barefoot in the living room, city lights leaking through the curtains like spilled gold. One quiet night, the lights failed and they lit candles that danced on their faces, two lovers glowing against a darkness that was already watching. Joyce seemed perfect, almost too perfect. She never complained, never questioned. Every word, every smile, every glance felt rehearsed, like she already knew what he would say. Daniel often told his friends, "When I'm with her, I don't think about work, I think about peace." But peace, as they say, sometimes comes before the storm. Within months, Daniel proposed. The wedding was grand, silk, lights, and endless applause. He bought her a mansion on the edge of the city, a place so luxurious it could have been carved from a dream. Marble floors from Italy, chandeliers that dripped gold, a piano she never played. But with every new luxury, Daniel's soul grew quieter. The house didn't feel alive, it felt watchful. The wedding itself was the kind every social media blogger would call a fairy tale come to life. A luxury hall dripping in white roses and gold lights. Daniel arrived in a black limousine, Joyce in a gown that shimmered like moonlight trapped in silk. Every camera flashed when she walked down the aisle. Her face calm, almost too calm, like she wasn't walking into marriage, but back into something she had already known. Daniel smiled proudly as whispers filled the air. That's the man who always gets what he wants. The guests clapped, the orchestra played, and everything looked perfect. But the air was strangely heavy, as if the hall itself was watching.
When the priest began the vows, the microphone screeched with a sharp, painful sound. Twice. The lights above flickered, and for a split second, everyone swore they saw Joyce's reflection in the mirrored wall, standing behind herself, smiling when she shouldn't have been. The priest paused. "Are you all right, my dear?" Joyce smiled faintly. "I'm fine, it's just the light." But one of the bridesmaids gasped quietly. She had seen tears running down Joyce's reflection's face, even though Joyce herself was dry-eyed. The priest cleared his throat and continued, pretending nothing had happened. When Daniel said, "I do," a cold gust of air blew through the hall, strong enough to make candles flicker and flowers tremble. Someone muttered, "When the wind joins your vows, the spirits are listening." Daniel laughed it off, whispering to Joyce, "Superstitions, old people talk." At the reception, the band played soft jazz. The cake was 6 tiers high, sparkling under chandelier light. But when they cut it, the frosting inside was crimson red. The baker swore it had been white hours earlier. Joyce simply smiled and licked the icing from her finger. "Tastes sweet," she said. Daniel's stomach turned, but the crowd cheered, unaware. During their first dance, the music slowed unexpectedly. The track glitched and reversed for a few seconds, sounding like whispers in another language. The DJ panicked, but Joyce whispered to Daniel, "Don't worry, it's just an echo." He forced a laugh, trying to shake off the chill running down his spine. Later, as they posed for photos, Daniel noticed the photographer trembling. He asked what was wrong. The man said nothing, just stared at the camera screen. On the preview image, Joyce wasn't smiling. Her mouth was a dark, open void. Daniel snatched the camera. The photo was normal. He chuckled nervously. "You need rest, man." But deep inside, something told him this love story had too many shadows. When joy is too loud, even the gods grew suspicious. The wedding ended past midnight. Guests said it was the most magical event they had ever attended. But as they left the hall, a power outage hit the entire street. Only their limousine's headlights remained, cutting through the sudden darkness. Joyce turned to Daniel and whispered, "Till death do us part." Her voice sounded softer, yet not entirely human. Daniel smiled, pretending not to notice. He had everything he wanted: wealth, beauty, and a wife the world envied. But some men, they say, don't know when the prize is really a punishment. At first, the strange happenings were small. The lights flickered whenever Daniel looked at Joyce. The elevator stopped between floors, though the power never failed. At night, whispers echoed faintly, calling his name, soft, almost pleading, almost accusing. One night, as Daniel walked late, he noticed a shadow glide across the marble floor. He turned. No one was there, but in the reflection of the glass, Joyce's image smiled, though she wasn't in the room. Another night, he heard footsteps in the hallway. He opened the door. Empty corridor, but the air was icy. Frost crept across the warm glass, like invisible hands tracing warnings. By the fourth night, the house no longer felt like home. It felt like a trap that breathed. The walls seemed to murmur when Daniel passed by, as if whispering secrets he wasn't supposed to hear. That evening, he returned from a meeting to find something strange. Every photograph on the wall, those smiling pictures from their honeymoon, had changed. In each one, Joyce's eyes were pitch black, hollow, staring straight at him no matter where he stood. He tore them all down in panic, smashing the glass frames on the marble floor. But when he woke up the next morning, the photos were back, perfectly framed, perfectly hung, as though nothing had happened. Even worse, in the largest portrait, the one above their bed, Joyce's reflection seemed to move. When he looked closely, her head turned ever so slightly toward him, and though her lips didn't part, he heard a whisper, soft but unmistakable, "You can't erase what's already written." Daniel stumbled back, heart hammering. The air grew heavy, metallic, and for the first time, he felt truly unwelcome in his own home. That night, he couldn't sleep. The chandelier above their bed swayed gently, though the air was still. And just as he began to drift off,
he felt a single drop of cold water land on his forehead. He looked up. The ceiling was dry. When he turned to Joyce, she was fast asleep, but her pillow was soaked. At dinner, the table seemed alive, glasses shifting, cutlery sliding closer to Joyce's seat. And sometimes, when Daniel looked at her, she seemed to fade, like a mirage struggling to stay visible. By the sixth night, the mansion smelled of wet earth and ash. When he slept, Joyce's silhouette appeared at the edge of the bed, hair dripping, eyes fixed on him. He'd wake to hear her whisper in his ear, only to find the space beside him empty. Even the city outside seemed to conspire. Sirens always stopped when Joyce passed the window. It was as if the world itself was holding its breath for what was coming. On the seventh night, Daniel decided he had to finish the plan. The scary ritual had to be done. He told himself this was the only way to stop the fear, the whispers, and the shadows. He took Joyce out of the house, saying he wanted to show her something special. They drove far into the dark forest. The moon made the ground shine like silver. At the old shrine, Daniel stopped. Joyce followed quietly, her bare feet making no sound. "Why are we here?" she asked softly. Daniel tried to smile. "It's a surprise." He put her in the middle of a circle drawn with white chalk. Candles flickered all around them, and strange marks were on the floor. The air felt heavy, like it was hard to breathe. Daniel lifted the knife, but Joyce tilted her head. "Daniel," she said coldly, "do you really love me?" "Of course I do," he lied. "Then why do your hands shake?" Daniel stayed quiet. Sweat ran down his face. He raised the knife higher, but suddenly all the candles went out. Darkness filled the room, whispering his name. Daniel turned around. The walls of the shrine moved, like something was crawling underneath. The floor cracked. He could hear voices crying far below. Then a blue light filled the room. Joyce glowed. Her dress floated though there was no wind, and her eyes were black. "You are going to hurt me," she said, "but you already did." Daniel dropped the knife. "No, that's not true," he screamed. Joyce stepped closer. 3 years ago, you left me to die in the river for money. Did you think I would forget?" Daniel fell to his knees, crying. "It was an accident." "Nothing about this is an accident," she said. The candles lit up again, this time red. The wind blew hard through the shrine. Joyce smiled once, sadly. "You married death, Daniel." The ground opened beneath him. Cold hands grabbed his legs and pulled him down. He kicked and screamed, but he only went deeper. Joyce stood above him, glowing like moonlight. Her eyes were not human. They were deep and dark. "I begged you for mercy," she whispered. "Do you remember the night you pushed me into the water?" Daniel shook his head. I was scared. I didn't mean to hurt you." She touched his cheek with her cold hand. "You meant it. You just didn't think I would come back." The wind blew harder. Candles flickered and turned into shadows that danced on the walls. Voices laughed, cried, and screamed all at once. Joyce stood tall. "You used me to get power, and all the others you hurt, they are waiting for you now." Daniel screamed as the ground swallowed him. His last sight was Joyce's calm face, sad and shining. Then silence. The lessons of the story. Love is not a game to be played with greed. When we use the heart of another for power or gain, we awaken something that never truly sleeps. Guilt, memory, consequence. Daniel thought he could bury the past, but the past always remembers its way home. Betrayal never dies. It only waits in silence until it's time to speak. Remember this: what we do in secret will one day stand in the light. If this story moved you, don't live in silence. Tell us what lesson you took from Daniel and Joyce's fate in the comments. And if you love powerful stories that make you think, subscribe, like, and share this video.